Financially Fit with B, where we focus on personal finance and wealth building for Caribbean Americans mainly, but also for anyone who is just looking to level up their finance game. So today's video is going to be about the 10 most popular or common myths that I hear about money or personal finance. And we are going to dive into why people believe it, why it's wrong, and the truth about it. So hopefully this will be a way to open that door into helping you rewire and rework how you view, feel, and think about money, because it does make a difference. I am a believer that some of these are reasons why people shy away from talking about finances or do not take certain actions into growing their portfolio and just their money in certain ways, because some of the things that we were once taught are not necessarily true or relevant or applicable now. And if you have not already, please like, subscribe, and share the channel with your family and friends. We welcome the community here. We encourage the topics of money and everything that's around it without shame, without guilt, without fear. We want to help you guys work through those things. That is the purpose and the point of this channel. Let's get into these mythbusters. Okay, the first one, cash is king. How many of us have heard this? My memories of this go back to my mother literally hiding money in a mattress, in an underwear drawer, in a jacket pocket. My grandmother hides hers in socks and puts them all over her room. Like, we've grown up with the mindset that we need to physically keep our cash close to us. If you've grown up in a Caribbean household or a Black household, like, this is something that you probably have seen. So why do people believe that? People feel that cash is safe, and they feel like losing money in the stock market is risky and unsafe. Here's why it is wrong. At one point or another, that might have been maybe a safe way to go and to keep your cash close to you, before there was formalized banking systems and things like that. But in this day and age, you keeping cash is actually eroding the value of your dollar because of a thing called inflation. Inflation is important to understand because that affects your purchasing power. As the cost of goods and services increase over time, that means that your dollar is going to be able to buy less of those goods and services for you. The more money that you keep outside of interest-bearing accounts, which we'll get to that later, the more money that you keep outside of those accounts that are trying to keep up with inflation, the more your money is eroding in value. Either way you look at it, that dollar that you had now, it probably was going to be able to buy you a lot more 30 years ago, because the prices of things 30 years ago were much, much lower than they are now. But then on top of that, it's important to make sure that you're keeping your money in an account that is trying to keep up with inflation as it fluctuates, because that's how you're going to minimize how much your value is going down. Now, I'm not saying it is not important to keep some cash on hand, readily accessible for emergencies. That's always a good option. I am saying that it is important to make sure that you are investing your money, because investing typically is the way that you're going to beat inflation and keep and grow your money. So even your normal savings account with your bank that is earning you 0.01% interest is not going to keep up with the current inflation rate of 2.9%. So you want something that is going to be like a high yield savings account that might earn you 4%. That is beating the inflation rate of 2.9%. Or you might want something that is in the stock market that is maybe going to average you like 8% on top of your money. That is beating the inflation rate. You keeping it in your mattress at home earned you nothing. And in fact, you're actually losing money that way. So this is the idea behind this myth that cash is king. It's not that it's not important to have, but you do not want your primary source of savings or retirement or whatever outside of interest-bearing accounts that are going to earn you more money and beat inflation. Yeah? If you have any questions about this, please feel free to drop a comment and let me know, and I'm happy to answer them. This is the whole purpose of this, is for us to beat these myths, and understand this better and change your financial perspective so that you are utilizing your money more wisely and you're making your money work for you. Myth number 2, investing is only for rich people. How many of us have heard this? Or maybe our experience with this has been, we've only known a very select few people in our lifetime that discussed investing, and they may have been more well off, more affluent, maybe of a different race than us, and we just blocked it out of our minds and said that, we wrote it off, and we said that it was something that could not be attainable for us because I am not rich. Now, at one point that might have been the case because there were higher barriers of entry for investing back in the day, where it did require a large deposit to get started, and they also had high fees to maintain that. But times have changed. Times have changed, and my question to you is that, are you aware of this, that times have changed more in your favor, where the barriers of entry are much lower now? You can literally invest with $1. Yes, $1. Therefore, that means that you guys have even less of an excuse to not invest because of this. Because at one point, I could understand if you said, you know what, I'm not in a position financially to be able to invest into XYZ. But guess what? You can't use that excuse anymore, because you can invest with $1. That is less than a cup of coffee. Yep, that's what I said. What makes this possible and attainable and accessible for us nowadays is fractional trading. This is basically where you can buy into pieces of stocks, ETFs, index funds, and get a piece of the pie. Whereas beforehand, you would have had to buy the whole pie in order to get a piece of it. Now you can buy slices of the pie and still have some skin in the game. This is done through trading platforms like Fidelity, Charles Schwab, E-Trade, Webull, Ally, Robinhood. There's a ton of platforms that allow fractional trading, and their minimum deposit is very low. You basically would create an account for free with any of these platforms, and you would connect it to a bank account. You would fund it, put money in there, and then you would go about buying pieces of whatever stocks, index funds, mutual funds. For example, if you wanted to buy Amazon, their latest stock price is $229. So say you don't have that money to go ahead and buy a whole share of Amazon, or much less 5 shares or whatever, but you can create your account with a trading platform, a reputable one, preferably, and you can buy $20 of that Amazon stock, and you would have $20 worth of that stock at that point. If every week or every 2 weeks when you got paid, you put a little bit, another $20 and another $20, and before you know it, you would end up owning more and more and more of that stock. That is accessible. That is doable. I want it to be known that this is a myth that investing is for rich people. There are many ways to invest. Probably the stock market might be one of the more popular ways. There are other ways that do require higher barriers of entry, such as real estate purchases. You might need to have a lump sum of cash in order to buy a property or whatever the case is. If you were one of those that thought, oh, I can't invest in the stock market because I don't have the money to do so, I'm here to tell you that you can. It is easier than you think, and I encourage you to do some research into it or ask me questions about it. The beauty of investing and why people do it, and what I think is not always spoken about, or maybe people are talking about it and you guys aren't paying attention to it, compound interest. What can I say about chef's kiss? Okay, that's what I'm going to say about it. So let's back up a little bit. You can be on the good side of interest or the bad side of interest. I feel like most of our exposure to interest has been on the bad side. Bad being we owe someone else interest. That being credit card interest, auto loan interest, personal loan interest. There is a flip side to interest being favorable to you. For example, if you have a high yield savings account and you earn 4% interest on whatever balance you have in there, that is money that is coming back to you on top of whatever money you have in your savings account. Another example is the stock market. So I want to give you guys just really simple compound interest examples and why it's an important concept to understand and how it can work for you, because we're in this for the long game. We want to grow our wealth and see our money stack up. Compound interest is what helps make that happen. In a nutshell, compound interest is when you put in money, you invest it, it grows, And you let that money now bundle like a snowball and grow on top of each other, and it just keeps growing and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. The interesting thing is that your money does not grow linearly like you might think. Your money actually starts to grow exponentially. There are graphs to show this. Yes, I'm getting into statistics of it all, because when you actually see this happening, it is eye-opening, okay? So let's say, for example, you put $1,000 into a stock account and you earn 10% interest at the end of that year. So your stocks did well, the market did well. That $1,000 that you invested in the beginning has now grown to $1,100 because you've earned 10% interest on top of that money that you put in there originally, right? Now it is year 2. We are not going to withdraw anything. We are not going to sell anything. We are just going to let the money keep building upon itself. So it's year 2. You start off the year with $1,100, $1,000 of which was your original investment, $100 of that on which was interest from a 10% annual return. The market does well again. Your investments that you have are doing well. You earn another 10% interest at the end of year 2. That is $110 on top of your $1,100 that is now snowballing in your account. So now you have $1,210 from the original $1,000 that you did 2 years ago, right? So you see how it's ballooning. It's starting to balloon on itself, to compound on itself from your original $1,000 investment. Now it's year 3. You're gonna just keep doing this. And you know what? You start off the year at $1,210. You're gonna do the same thing. It's boring, but it's consistent. And this is what builds the wealth, because you go and you have another great year. The market returns to you 10% again on now $1,200. So that is $121 in interest. Now your account is at $1,331 from the $1,000 that you put in 3 years ago. You've earned $331 in interest for doing the same thing over and over again. Do this for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and you can see how your money will grow from that original lump sum that you put in the beginning. This is the beauty of compound interest. This is the beauty of why people are doing this, because it becomes mindless at a certain point and your money is literally working for you. If you're a data person like me, you might want to see the numbers, or this doesn't make sense. I don't trust the stock market and I don't trust this. Go look at the data. Go look at the statistics. Look at the graphs on how the market has performed year after year. Now, is every year going to be roses? No, nothing is consistently going to be a record-breaking year. So you are going to have some years where you don't get 10% returns. You might lose 10%, and your account might then be lower than what you originally invested. That is possible. I'm not going to say that does not happen, because it does. But here's the key. The market will always bounce back. You have to have faith that the market will always bounce back. Your tolerance for risk understands that, because the tendency is that if you see that the market is tanking and oh my gosh, the world is in mayhem, and you pull out your money and then the market shoots back up a couple months after that, a couple weeks or days or whatever, now you took out your money and now it's going to cost you more to try to get back in. And then you have to start the process all over again. You've lost that time in the market, because one key thing to remember is time in the market is always better than timing the market. I'm looking at the bigger picture here. I'm in it for the long haul. I'm not looking for a get-rich-quick scheme or any of those things. That's not of interest to me. If it is to you, cool. That means your risk tolerance is higher than mine. I am not there yet, and I don't know if I want to get there. I'm just letting you know that I trust that the market will always bounce back, because even if you've looked statistically, the graphs have done this. They'll go up and down, they'll go up and down, and they'll go up and they'll go down. But it's always had this linear trajectory of where it's always increased. The little smaller gaps in between time will reflect the Great Recession, housing crisis, all of those things where big things were happening that were impacting the markets. But at the end of the day, the people who lost money in 2008 have made their money back and then some now, because they trusted the process and they understood that the market is going to recover. And people do not want to stay down for long. The people who are heavily into investing, they have things to lose too, and they don't want to just see their money dwindle away. So they're going to do what they need to do to get the market back to a healthy state. We need to have a seat at the table. And us being on the sidelines and looking at other people make the money is not going to get us that seat at the table. We are already late. We're already behind the curve. We were not taught or shown these things at a young age. And there are people who have inherited stock portfolios when they were babies. So their money was already making money and they could barely walk. Majority of us, if you are one of those people, God bless you, please share your ways and the things that you've learned with us, because we're essentially playing catch up right now. And the more time you spend fearing it, the more money you're losing. I don't know how else to put it. Like, the more time you spend hemming and hawing about why you can't invest money or why you can't get into the stock market, you're losing money. And that is a big motivator in me having this platform, is to really just, let's cut through what's really preventing you from it, because it's not as scary as we think that it is. And if it's a lack of education, let's talk about that. Let's start admitting why we are not doing some of these things when we want to have more. These are ways, tested and proven ways to have more, and we're not taking advantage of it. And there is no barrier of entry. There is nothing to do with your race. You don't have to run a background check or any of that kind of stuff for you to have skin in the game. So why aren't we doing it? Sorry, I got a little carried away, but I say all that to say, us saying that we didn't know or we didn't learn this is no longer an excuse. We have grown up in the internet age. All this stuff that I'm sharing with you guys is available in a quick Google search. You can use ChatGPT, you can use whatever, but it is available to us at our fingertips, literally. So we really have less excuse, especially in our big adult age, to not be doing these things. And it doesn't cost as much as we think. It just, you set it up, you forget about it. You let your stuff automate, and you can check back in a couple of years and you're sitting on a pretty penny. Like, that is totally doable. You just have to take those first few steps to get things organized and let it do its thing. The less you touch it, the better. Tip number 3, you need a 6-figure salary in order to build wealth. Why do people believe this? People believe this because they think that high income earners automatically become wealthy. Why this is wrong? The fact of the matter is, especially today, a lot of high income earners are living paycheck to paycheck because they do not have good money management skills. Wealth is not built on just having a large salary. Wealth is built on consistency and discipline and smart money management. The truth is that budgeting, investing, saving, and living below your means is much more important than how much you earn. We've probably come across some people on social media that are low income earners. Maybe for them that's $50,000 and they've been able to save $100,000. That's double what they make in a year. It might have taken them some years to do it. They might have adjusted their lifestyle in certain ways to achieve that goal, but that's big. That is commendable. And it is due to them having some form of a system, them weeding out unnecessary spending, them determining what is important to them at this stage in their life. Is saving money more important than traveling, than buying a house, than shopping? And for them, it might be, but it is definitely doable, and it does not mean that they had to have a high income to do it. Guys, having more money does not solve all of your problems if you were not responsible with it to begin with. It makes some things easier, but it does not solve the core basis of our issues when it comes to money management. That's just what it is. That is the truth. This is also why it's really important to start talking to your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews about money at a young age, because when they learn to pay themselves first, when they get an allowance or when somebody gives them money, they're actually learning good money management habits at a young age. So when they start working their first job, they tend to be way more responsible because they already have certain habits instilled in them, versus ending up like me when you get to college and you take out your first student loan, like, ooh, I got this refund. Ooh, I'm about to go ball out. You learn quickly and you learn the hard way. And these are things that we want to stray away from because we want to make life easier for those coming after us. And we want them to learn from our mistakes. And these are ways that we do that. So let's not go in with the expectation that, oh, I'm just going to earn more money, or I'm just going to wait until I get this lump sum and then everything is going to be fixed, because that's the missing piece of the puzzle. When in fact, you need to understand how to manage the money that you have now. That's really the missing piece. If you're not managing your money well now, with this current salary and income that you have, you're not going to do much better when you're earning more of it. It sounds a little counterintuitive, but it's truth in that, because a lot of it comes down to habits, not the amount that you're earning. Myth number 4 is that having a 401k or an IRA is enough for you to retire on. Why people believe this? It's something that's heavily promoted when you start a new job. If they offer retirement accounts, this is something you're encouraged to sign up for. A lot of employers will match what you contribute to a retirement account, whether it's a 401k, a 403b, 457b, whatever it is. Now, I will say, if you are being offered one of these, absolutely sign up for it and start contributing at least up to what that employer is going to match. Otherwise, you are leaving free money on the table. You might have heard people say this before and not really understood what it meant. My employer matches 3%. They will match 3% of my contributions. I can contribute 6%, and they're still going to cap that at 3% of what I contributed, right? So I'm still covered whether I want to contribute more than that or not, but I need to contribute at least 3%. If I only contribute 2%, they're only going to match 2%. I miss out on that extra 1% because I wasn't even contributing enough. So this is what we say: you want to do at least what your employer is matching and more if you can, absolutely. Now, for the myth, it's not necessarily wrong, but I think it's really important that we diversify our retirement funds. If you have one 401k and you're dumping everything into that, you are opening yourself up to a little bit more risk, because the 401k does base itself off of the market. Maybe you were turning 65 and you were ready to retire back in 2008 and the housing crisis happened, and your account might have been sitting pretty. Maybe you had over 2 million in it, and maybe you're like, okay, you know what, I'm going to be set for 25 years after I retire, whatever the case is. And what if you lost $1 million when you were ready to retire because of the crisis, and now you're out of the workforce and you just lost $1 million that you were banking on? That's a lot of money. And now maybe you thought you would have been set for 25 years, and now you're looking like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do after 10, 15 years. If you had your 401k and God forbid something like that happened, what if you had other types of retirement, maybe real estate, maybe other types of brokerage accounts that aren't as exposed to those types of fluctuations, that's a little bit more stable, that can supplement if something like that was to happen? We don't know when those things are going to happen. We can't predict them. But if you had other ways to supplement your retirement, you wouldn't be banking on just one and putting all your eggs into that one basket. I am a believer. I do not like all my money sitting in one account. For some people, that might be a lot to manage, but for me, it just gives you the peace of mind to know that I have options. So yes, I have employer-sponsored retirement accounts, but I also have just an individual brokerage account that I play around and I buy individual stocks in. But I also have an IRA, a personal one that I contribute to, and I buy more conservative stocks and ETFs in there, so that is not so much of this. It's just kind of more like this. So if it does take a hit, the hit is not tanking it. It might just do a little blip and then kind of reset itself. That is just my strategy, my approach. I also have high yield savings accounts. I want to start getting into real estate investing and things of that nature. So make sure you are diversifying yourself. This is about education and learning where you should be putting your money to secure your future. Myth number 5 is that budgeting means restricting yourself and not enjoying life. I know people do not like the term budget. It seems like a rule book. It seems like, oh my God, my life is over, doom and gloom. That could not be further from the truth. And I admit that it took me some years to really sit and settle with this, because I'm now at the stage where budget does not mean sacrifice. It's more about control. I am now able to be intentional about where my money is going, but that also means I incorporate money for me to spend freely without guilt. I can admit that in the past, when I've done certain budgets for myself, I cut out too much of that miscellaneous line, and it did lead to me failing to stay within the limits of my budget because it was making me miserable. And I understand that concept. That's why it is now very imperative for me to include a line in my budget for enjoyment. If I want to go to Sephora and buy up 3 little tiny bottles for $200 and know that I'm still saving and investing at a rate that I should be at this age, I'm okay with that. At that point, my money is still intentional because I'm still being responsible and I'm still handling my business, but I'm also still doing things that I just enjoy. Not everything needs a reason. It could just be as simple as I enjoy it, I like it, it makes me feel good, period. When you have a well thought out budget, that is what that means. It is about control, not sacrifice. My personal preference when it comes to budgeting is zero-based budgeting. Every dollar has a job. That's just how my brain works. I actually use my HR portal where I can view my pay slips, and I am able to add in accounts. I know that I have different goals that I'm trying to attain, and it's just easier for me to have that money going where it needs to go so I don't touch it. And then I have certain accounts that I use for those miscellaneous activities. My check is parceled out amongst multiple accounts where I have my bill money, I have money going directly to my brokerage accounts. Same thing for my niece's brokerage account that I'm managing. I have money going to my emergency fund. I have money going to my family's emergency fund. I have money going to my checking accounts that I barely use, but it's normally like the balance of my paycheck. Nothing is mentally earmarked anymore. It is just handled by the system that I have in place, and I just sleep much better at night. Another common one that might be suitable for you is the 50-30-20 approach. Allocate 50% of your income to essentials, 30% towards wants, and 20% towards savings and investments, and even sometimes debt repayments, above and beyond what your minimum payments would be, because your minimum payment should actually be in that 50%. That is something that is really popular to help people understand where their money should be going. If you cannot spit off how much your expenses are in a month, you need to be looking at your finances a little bit closer. You should be able to say, you know what, I bring in X amount in a month and my expenses more than cover that. A lot of us are short and living paycheck to paycheck because we don't make enough money to cover our expenses. And we're not realizing why things are so tight. And it's because you just need to take a little time, have a money date with yourself, and start looking at how much money you really need to have at a minimum to support yourself comfortably. And then to start achieving other goals, because if you're not meeting the basics, you're not going to be able to do more than that. Number 6 is I have a credit card, so I don't need an emergency fund. Why do people believe that? As they think that a credit card is a quick way to get access to money for emergencies. Why is that wrong? That's wrong because credit cards come with high interest rates, therefore making the debt even more costly on top of whatever the emergency was. The truth of the matter is that cash is going to be your best bet when it comes to emergencies, because you're not going to have to pay anything back at that point. This is what an emergency fund is for, to cover those rainy day instances. The recommendation is that if you have stable income, maybe you work a job, you get paid twice a month, whatever the case is, you want to have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved in maybe a high yield savings account or something that is accessible. If you are a freelancer or you're self-employed, you might want to have 6 months to a year, just because typically the nature of your work ebbs and flows a little bit more than those who have stable anticipated income coming in. But you want to have cash, maybe not cold hard cash in the sense that it's not tied up in an investment or somewhere where you can't access it or withdraw it when you need it in the case of the emergency. I would recommend a high yield savings account, so that way that lump sum of money is earning money on itself and it's just set to the side in a separate account in the event it needs to be spent. One thing to note here is do not feel bad about spending your emergency fund when an emergency comes up. Some of us want to hold on to that because we don't want to touch the money. This is the intention for it. It is okay if you're having car trouble and you set aside money for that. Use the money. That's what it's for. If you encounter a job loss, God forbid, use the money. That's what it's for. It's myth number 7. Carrying a credit card balance improves your credit score. I don't know who told you guys that, but that is false. That is wrong, because carrying a balance only increases your interest payments and it does not improve your credit score. The truth is, the best habit to implement when it comes to credit cards is paying off your balance in full before the due date. Yes, paying off the balance in full every month before the due date. That is what is going to have you maintain the healthiest credit score when it comes to making payments. Maybe even twice a month. Some people like to do that as well. Myth number 8 is that debt is always bad. This is not the case in all instances. It's similar to interest, where there's a good side of interest and there's a bad side to interest. Debt is wrapped up right in that. There are not so good forms of debt, like credit card debt, personal loans, unnecessary debt that you take on. And then there's good debt, like mortgages or, investment loans for a business. Maybe you're getting passive income from that, or it's low interest and it's a wealth building strategy. That is not considered bad debt. It is something that is intentional. You have a plan for it. The idea is that you are going to get a return on whatever your original investment was that is going to cover the debt that you incurred. Ooh, number 9, myth number 9. Paying rent is like throwing away money. Let's get into this one because I am a renter, okay? Happily so. We might tussle about this, but that's okay. I feel like renting gets a bad rep. I really think that this is something that is individual and is circumstantial. I'm not in the market to want to buy a home anytime soon, and my dad is gonna hate that I say this. I know we get into the tussle about it. I have this argument all the time with my dad that it's like, when you were my age, you had a full-blown family. You had a wife, you had 2 kids. Like, in my circumstance, I don't feel like I need to have a house. Like, maybe my viewpoint is flawed on this, but not right now. Like, I view it as more labor and stress on me than I want to take on at this moment, because that means that I'm responsible for everything within the house. And quite frankly, I don't want those kind of responsibilities right now. I am good with putting in a maintenance request with my apartment and saying, come fix this light bulb. My toilet's not working. There's a leak here. Y'all come fix this. I'm okay with that. I have peace of mind about that. I don't care about the equity that I can be making. I don't care about it. I would be more interested in investing in a multifamily property or something like that. But as far as me being a homeowner, I do not lose any sleep at night over it. That is my personal stance on it. You guys do not have to agree. I'm not telling people not to buy a house. I understand it completely for those who have kids. I just feel like it is a personalized decision, and I do not think that it's a blanket one-size-fits-all statement. I'm one of those people who is able to invest that extra money that I'm not paying in homeowners insurance and all these other associated fees on top of the mortgage payment that is not often talked about. I am able to put that money into my retirement funds. And that means way more to me. I feel like that is a smarter allocation of my money at this stage. Personal finance is very personal. Like, you have to be okay with your decisions. I will say, I think it has to do with the market conditions. Like, shout out to those people who got a 2%, 3% rate on their homes in 2021. Like, y'all are the MVPs, but not everyone is in that circumstance. Because right now, rates are hovering at 7%. Like, I think that there are pros and cons to both renting and buying. I can see from a buying perspective that, you have equity in your house, you get certain tax breaks. I can also see with renting that it promotes some more flexibility. You might have more of an opportunity to invest extra money that you don't have to put towards property tax, insurance, things of that nature, into other forms of investment. And maybe it's just helping you save up for the right home purchase. You do get caught up in buying too much house. A lot of us might feel regret at that point because it just costs us more than what it should, because we thought that we needed a certain level of house to feel like, oh, I'm a homeowner now. Myth number 10 is side hustles are the only way to increase wealth. This is believed because people think that side hustles are the only way to increase your income. Sometimes I feel like only having one income is too close to none. Then I also think back to how much my parents worked and just seeing other people around me, working 2 and 3 jobs and how that's led to burnout and less time with their family and just health issues, this array of things that came with that. Now I'm in that space of I'm trying to work smarter, not harder. So I would rather invest in some ETFs that are going to pay me dividends so I don't have to actually put in exchanging time for money. I saw a meme the other day that said, you can keep the booked and busy. I'm trying to be invested and rested. And I said, yes, that's me right there. Because I'm at the point where I see the value in having the freedom of my own time. And I don't want all of my time going into working. While side hustles are great for some people, I think if you have natural talents or ways to increase your income easily, absolutely go for it. I'm not knocking it at all. But I don't agree that it's the only way to build wealth. I don't think you having more jobs means you're going to have more wealth, because then you end up in the same pot of, if you're not good with managing that money, it doesn't matter how much income you have bringing in. The more your money works for you in your sleep, the less work you actually have to do. Yeah. Okay, so that wraps up our list of 10 myths that I wanted to debunk with you guys. So I hope you guys learned something today. I hope it jogged your memory to think about some things you might not have thought about before. I encourage you guys to do some more research, read about it. Ask me some questions, drop some comments. Let me know your feedback on this video. If you learned something, what was your favorite part? Thank you guys for joining. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share the page. And stay tuned for the next one. God bless. Stay financially fit. Mwah. Welcome back.